Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of our /ProRevenge, where terrible people get exactly what's coming to them. Hope you're all doing awesome today, and it's time for more Reddit stories, so let's just get right into it, guys. Manager insists I do my job properly. Happy to comply, sir. In early 2020, I was hired under the title Assistant Manager at a local automotive shop. We mainly sold tires and alloy wheels for passenger vehicles. The company owned several stores. I reported directly to my manager, who then reported to the owner of the company. Shortly after I was hired, I noticed the behavior of the manager was far from professional. He would constantly mock and berate me for being the new guy. I believe part of this was jealousy and insecurity on his part, as I ended up recording more sales under my name within the first few months. He would also knock off work early and start drinking beer, whilst the rest of us continued to work. I remember when he found out that I participated in MMA training sessions after work, he tried to goad me into a fight for his own amusement. Clearly, this guy didn't like me, and I was starting to get the feeling that he was trying to get me to snap or lose my cool, and as a result, my employment. I became even more certain of that with what happened next. During the few months that I'd worked there, I had noticed that our takings for the day and the sales records did not match. I would often spend half an hour to an hour after work trying to figure out where the errors were coming from, whilst the manager would simply throw his hands in the air and exclaim that he had no idea how this was happening. The recurring issue seemed to be that our cash takings had been recorded incorrectly. There would sometimes be an excess amount of cash that didn't match up to what was recorded on our sales and invoicing software. Other times, there would be less. I was at the time an accounting student studying towards my bachelor's degree. I was already suspicious of the cash being out each day. However, given how the manager had been treating me up until this point, I was concerned that any complaint would somehow be twisted and used against me. And boy, was I right. Several weeks later, my manager took some time off. During this time, I managed a personal record in store sales, and also noticed something interesting. The cash was never out at the end of each shift. I reported this directly to the owner of the company. Given I was acting manager during the time my manager was away, I was expected to report to the owner every day, and explained what had been occurring whilst the manager was there. In all honesty, I was hopeful that the owner would be having a word with the manager about the discrepancies. However, I was also wary, as I believed once the owner spoke to my manager, that the manager will immediately know it was me who reported this. When the manager returned to work, he immediately approached me with the disgruntled look on his face. "I've spoken with the owner. You tried to blame me for the discrepancies? You should focus on doing your job properly, then this wouldn't happen," said the manager. I was quite taken aback by how angry he was, though I wasn't surprised that he twisted it and tried to place blame on me. Given his reaction, I'm even more suspicious at this point. He wants me to do my job properly, eh? Malicious compliance ensues. That same week, I got to work. I started paying attention to what customers were paying when they were dealing with my manager. Behind his back, I began examining all of his sales transactions and invoices with a fine comb. As the days rolled by, I started to find evidence of his dishonesty. When it came to a few cash sales, my manager was doing the following. Example, would tell the customer the price is $200 if he pays cash. Would discount the price by $50 in the sale and invoicing software. Would put the extra cash into the till and record a $150 cash sale. Before we did the cash up at the end of the day, he would sneakily pocket this extra cash whilst no one was around. Though he was very foolish, as he clearly couldn't remember the exact amount he had swindled. Hence why the cash would be up some days when he didn't swindle enough, or the cash would be down when he swindled too much. I took screenshots of the discounts he had been giving on sales and sent them to the business owner along with a report with a detailed description of my findings. The report also showed that on all days he wasn't there for the cash count, there was no variance. When he was there, well, the owner was infuriated. This man had been his trusted employee for years. The owner was so infuriated, in fact, that he ordered my manager to do a mandatory drug test, pee in a cup style, on the same day he found out. And no surprises, he failed. Turns out the manager had quite the meth habit. This was most likely his sole motive for stealing cash, and the owner was beside himself. We operate machinery every day in the store, and so the thought of a manager walking around high as a kite wouldn't sit well with any health and safety professional. In fact, it could have landed the owner in serious legal trouble if any accident or injury occurred under this manager's watch. The manager was terminated immediately for violation of his contract, and was later taken to court by the owner in an attempt to recover the stolen funds. Safe to say, I was promoted to store manager position shortly after his termination. I mean, what can I say about this? It's pretty straightforward, isn't it? This dude definitely had it coming. Not only did he steal thousands, or who knows how much, for how many years, but when people start to get suspicious of him, he just throws someone else under the bus. But I mean, what else would you really expect from someone like this? Thanks to his sloppy work trying to cover his tracks, it just made it that much easier for OP to catch him. And I think it's safe to say after the owner took him to court, I'm sure those embezzlement charges probably hold a pretty serious sentence. Moving on to the next post, the moderators of the subreddit removed it for whatever reason. So I went ahead and pulled it up from a Reddit archive site, and that's why it looks a bit different, just FYI. Got my neighbor Karen put out of her apartment. This is one of those rare instances where the landlord and tenant got along and were on the same side. I, a 35-year-old man, had moved into a duplex in Atlanta with my then girlfriend and her son. Our neighbors at the start were so cool, we'll forever miss them. But they moved on and was replaced with Satan's estranged daughter. This was in 2014 to 2015, before the Karen phenomenon, but she was the textbook definition. Single woman, mid-50s, 2 big dogs, and way too many cats. At first, she kept to herself, so we did the polite thing when we passed each other, just smiled and waved. To go on from here, I need to illustrate the geography. Our duplex sat sideways on a low hill. Mine and girlfriend's unit was on the high side of the hill, so Karen's side was on the low end. The housing units were at the same level, and we each had a separate garage. The garages were both side by side, both under her unit. There was no stairway access to the garages. Only way in was the garage door. There was a shared driveway that came in from the low side and right turned into the garages. As such, the sidewalk from the driveway went past her unit. It dead-ended at the center of the house where the 2 separate entrances were located. Our side had no sidewalk because there was no need for one. That's important later. About 2 to 3 weeks after she moves in, me, my girlfriend, and her 7-year-old son have pulled mine and hers cars up into the yard to wash them. It's a nice hot summer day, and why not? Having a cute romantic moment with the water hose and bonding with their kid. We're off the sidewalk because we're not dicks. Eventually Karen comes home, parks in the garage, and walks up. We stop washing, say hi, and even joke that we'd wash hers next. She declines, ignores us briefly, then stops, and blows up. I don't recall exact quotes, but something to the effect of, "We are too loud at night." We don't have parties, by the way. We're on her sidewalk too much. It's hers because it's in front of her unit, not ours, so we need to stay off of it. And we also need to stop using our garage, because the automatic door opener rattles her unit, shakes things off shelves, and scares her pets. I was just going to ignore her, go back to washing cars, but she was pretty stern and loud in her complaints. My girlfriend had an attitude, and Karen just lit the fuse. Her son was getting scared of this lady yelling at us, so she leads with that. Come and talk to us like adults. Don't yell and scare my child. This is a shared sidewalk, not yours. We pay for the amenity of a garage, so we're going to use it, said my girlfriend. Screaming, finger-pointing, cussing, complete trailer trash behavior on both sides. I try to calm things down, so I say, Karen, let's just talk about this. We can reach a compromise. She's not having it, cusses us both out, goes inside and slams the door. My girlfriend is in tears, her son also crying and shaking. I escort them inside, calm them down. Then I decided I desperately needed to adjust the carbs in both of my motorcycles. Did I mention that I have motorcycles? Plural? Both of them. And they sit in the garage, under her unit. Both of them. And both of them are loud. And they both need the carbs adjusted. Right now. I open the doors, pull both bikes out, and turn them around to face pipes into the garage. Starting with the little one, the classic 2001 1100 V-Star. Oldie but a goodie. I spend the next 30 minutes wrenching the throttle as I fine-tune the jets and the carburetors. Her dogs were going nuts. It was glorious, getting a stiffy just thinking about it. Once I'm satisfied she's tuned, I move over to the Vulcan Mean Streak. This one is an 1800, and she's straight pipes, no baffles. In between swapping out the ponies, I can hear her through the ceiling, her floor. She's on the phone with the landlord, screaming and crying that she is going to get out of her lease, and there is nothing he can do about it. This sows the seeds for more misery for her later. I crank the even louder beast and fill the garage with smoke and noise for as long as my throttle hand could take. My girlfriend had calmed down by now and came to call me off, said I'd done enough. I disagreed, but whatever. My ears were ringing anyway. Walking back up the sidewalk, we could still hear her on the phone. She spotted us through her window and flipped us off. We laughed. And that brings us to part 2, which OP continued in a separate post. A few days later, I'm out on my way to work. I leave at about 6 to make it in time to have breakfast at the desk before I log on at 7. I go around to the garage, and Karen has left her car outside her garage and positioned it so I can't get my car out. I knock on her door, and of course, she doesn't answer. Bang on it a few more times. Nothing. I even yell at the door, "Hey, Karen, you're blocking my car. I need to get to work." Her dogs are kind enough to respond loudly, but not her. This is clearly her petty revenge for the bikes, I'm sure. Fortunately, it's a nice day, so I can just take one of them to work. The bike can fit around her car. Thanks to her, I wasn't going to have time to enjoy my breakfast. That evening, I come home and her car is still there. So instead of putting it back in the garage, I leave the bike parked behind her car, just at the edge of the street. Now, I know what you're thinking, but OP, what if she backs into it? And I was kinda hoping that was where it would go. See, I've got great insurance, and an even better lawyer. But no, this is how petty she is. She calls the cops. Come knock on her door, push the bike over, go through the front yard? No, calls the cops. The nice policeman informs me that I'm blocking her car from exiting. Yeah, that was kind of the point. I inform him that she started it. Yeah, I know, I felt like a kid saying it. And honestly, we'd have called the police on her for this crap this morning, but it seemed juvenile. Cop's response, yes, but that's why we're here. That's just sad. Lets me know our species is doomed. However, once I explain the whole thing, Mr. Policeman knocks on her door, addresses himself, and gets her to come outside. We explain the whole mess. Cop asks, is this true? She admits it, but can't produce a reason for it. Cop scolds us both to stop blocking the driveway. Says he doesn't want to have to come back to our residence again. Yeah, okay. That weekend, we go over to the neighbors for a few drinks. No, not that one. She doesn't like us. The next duplex over. Their porch is about 30 feet or so from the original scene of the crime, the garages. We're not being loud. No music. Just a handful of us cooking out and drinking beers. Oh, and among the guests this evening is our landlord himself. Did I mention we were in good with him? So anyway, sure enough, the nice policeman comes by. It's not the same officer as last time, but nonetheless, he comes to the deck, flashlight in hand. Says he got a noise complaint call. Clearly it was her. But what is rib-bustingly hilarious is that the officer said the noise complaint was placed by, wait for it, the landlord of the house. The landlord steps forward and says, funny, I don't remember calling to complain about myself. Once again, we explained everything to the officer. He chuckles, asks us to keep it down, and leaves. After that, Mr. Landlord goes over to her unit. Of course, she doesn't answer the door, but he speaks anyway, letting her know what she did wasn't cool, and she better not do it ever again. After that, we tried to avoid one another. Minor stuff like UPS package is dropped off for her. We find it on our side and move it over. Later on, we'll hear through the door, keep your hands off my stuff, or other minor headaches that make us wish her dogs would turn on her. A few weeks later, I'd gotten a promotion at work, so we threw a party. Sure enough, the cops were called again. This one was not placed by the landlord, but he was still there. He yells over at her door, hey Karen, this is getting old. This next instance, I can't quite take credit for, but Karen had built this obnoxious awning to cover her side of the porch out back. She never uses the porch, so why bother? However, I clearly remember a stipulation in our lease that says we are not allowed to modify the exterior of the units at all. Maybe hers is different. Maybe I should call the landlord to find out. What's that? No? She doesn't get to make modifications either? Oh, well, she did. So he makes her remove it. Again, because we're in good with him, he shares the tale with us. How she complained, then begged, then relented. It was ear candy. Speaking of candy, come Halloween, I decorated the yard. I had heard from multiple neighbors of ours that their children were frightened of my front yard come Halloween. By this point, I should have guessed though, that the lines were being drawn with Karen, figuratively and literally. I had to move some of my decorations that included the 15-foot ghost on the roof of the unit. I had to move it all the way over onto my side. So come Halloween night, we took my girlfriend's son out trick-or-treating. And literally, every kid we saw, we told them to go by Karen's place. She had the good candy, and lots of it. But she's old and hard of hearing, so you'll have to bang on the door pretty hard. No, she won't mind. Now, I realize this was also mean to the kids who went to her door, but worthy sacrifices on the altar of petty. Finale season. It's been about 10 plus months now. The cops hadn't had to come back out, and no one had been cussed out in a while. One evening, we hear a splatter coming from the kitchen. Go in and find the pipe has busted under the sink and was spraying. I quickly go out to the main and close it. But because this is a duplex, I've cut off water to Karen's side as well. She's not home yet, so we call our buddy, the landlord. The landlord comes and addresses the issue. Small part to fix. Needs to run to Home Depot, be right back. Meanwhile, I type up a note for Karen's door. I let her know we had a leak, had to shut off the water, but it should be fixed within an hour or two. Even thanked her for her understanding. While he's gone, we clean up the water. It was a lot. Then before he returns, we hear the splatter again. At first, I'm a little confused. I know I turned it off. But then it clicks. I go outside, and there's Karen holding a pipe wrench. Hey, didn't you see my note? I said. Yes, but my pets need water. Yes, but now you're flooding our unit. I don't care, I need water. My girlfriend comes out and goes off shouting, calling her a bitch. Next door neighbors hear and come out. It's a show now. I go get my wrench to close the main valve again, but she won't move out of the way. She's literally blocking me. I half expect her to take her wrench to my head, so I back off. Sure enough, the landlord arrives to the show, and I say to him, hey, we left her a note. She ignored it and started the water again. Wait, she what? Said the landlord. Then he turns to light into her, cussing her out. I take advantage of her distraction to go kill the water again. But at this point, it's been running long enough that the carpets are soaked. Professionals have to be called out. Meanwhile, the landlord is still yelling at her. All right, Karen, that's it. You're out of here. But I've already signed next year's lease. Doesn't matter, tear it up, and I'm taking your deposit to pay for their damages. But I don't have anywhere else to go. I couldn't help myself. I interjected and said, hey Karen, I could have sworn I heard you talking about getting out of this place a few months ago, back when I was working on the bikes. She just blurted out, F you, the default argument for anyone who has nothing else to say. Anyway, she continued to argue and cry about her deposit. She'll need that for her next apartment. She can't afford to move. She threatened small claims court to get it back. I put that one to bed real quick by saying, Karen, I left a note on your door and you chose to ignore it. Small claims won't give you crap. We spent the next couple of nights at a hotel while the carpets were redone. He put it all on insurance and just pocketed the deposit. Win-win. A few more weeks go by without so much as a peep from her. One day we come home and she's just gone. Porch, garage, and apartment all cleaned out. Sometimes I wonder whose life she's pissing on now. Man, what an absolute mess. I'm glad it actually had a good ending. And in the end, OP basically didn't even have to do anything at all. She really just dug her own grave, and OP just got to sit back and watch. Alright friends, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, drop a like, it really helps me out, and also subscribe for more. If there's any subreddits or topics you want to see me cover, comment down below. And with that, I'm out of here, so have an awesome day everyone, and I'll see you next time.